Walk into Excalibur today. Really walk in, not a drive-by on the highway where the castle towers still look impressive against the desert sky. Actually go inside, pass through those medieval doors. And look, the carpet, that's where you notice it first. The pattern faded in the high-traffic areas. You can see the ghost of what the colors used to be. The original design, now just a memory worn down by a million footsteps. The pile compressed flat in the walkways. The edges fraying where it meets the walls. The casino floor. Slot machines that other properties cycled out years ago. The cabinets scratched and dated. The screens dimmer than they should be. The chairs with fabric that's seen better decades. The food court. Walk through it and feel 1,997. The signage, the layout, the general aesthetic of a property that stopped updating somewhere around the Clinton administration and never started again. The smell. That's the one that hits you. Not bad exactly, but tired. The smell of a building that's been absorbing cigarette smoke and carpet cleaner and recycled air for 30+ years. The smell of neglect, of giving up. The lighting dimmer than it should be. The general vibe of a property that stopped trying, that surrendered. This is Excalibur, the castle on the strip, the medieval fantasy that millions of families visited, the hotel that used to represent something. Now it's a case study in what happens when Vegas decides to let a property rot. Today, I'm showing you the Excalibur Mistake, what this property used to be and what it represented for Vegas. The ambition, the scale, the promise that Vegas could work for everyone, not just high rollers and whales. How MGM systematically let it decay, the investment that never came, the renovations that got skipped, the deliberate choice to extract value instead of creating it. Why the decision to abandon a property instead of investing in it creates a doom loop that can't be escaped. The math of managed rot, the strategy of deliberate neglect. And what Excalibur tells us about how Vegas treats the properties that don't fit its luxury fantasy. The middle market massacre happening in plain sight. If you're new here, I expose the properties Vegas is abandoning. Not the closures that make headlines and get covered on the news. The slow deaths. The buildings that are being starved of investment while the corporations milk whatever revenue is left. The landmarks rotting in real time while tourists drive past wondering what happened. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, because Excalibur isn't the only property being left to rot. It's just the most visible example that castle on the skyline, impossible to miss, impossible to ignore. A symbol of a strategy that's killing the middle of the strip while everyone watches. Let me show you what Excalibur used to be, what this castle actually meant when it opened. Because unless you understand the ambition, the scale, the vision, the promise this property represented, you won't understand how tragic it is that Vegas let it die. This wasn't just another casino, this wasn't just another hotel, this was a statement about what Vegas could be, about who Vegas was for, and what's happening to it now isn't just decay, it's betrayal. 1,990. Excalibur opens, and the scale is staggering. 4,000 rooms, 4,000, the largest hotel in the world at the time, a medieval castle rising out of the desert like something from a fever dream, turrets and towers and a drawbridge and battlements, all of it painted in that distinctive white and red and blue that you can still see from the highway today. Inside, jousting tournaments, actual jousting, knights on horseback battling while you ate dinner, a medieval village with wandering performers, a jester stage. The commitment to theme was total, not the half-hearted theming of later Vegas, but full immersion. You walked in and you were somewhere else. The vision was clear. Vegas for families. Vegas for the middle class. A place where mom and dad could gamble in the casino while the kids watched knights battle. Where a vacation didn't require a second mortgage or a six-figure salary. Where the theme was so detailed, so committed, so fully realized that you actually felt transported. And it worked. God, it worked. Families flooded in. The property printed money. The castle became iconic, that silhouette on the southern strip, visible from miles away, promising adventure and fantasy and an affordable Vegas experience. Excalibur was proof. Proof that Vegas could be more than high rollers and bachelor parties. Proof that the middle market mattered. Proof that families would come, would spend money, would fill rooms, would make Vegas work if you built something for them. The largest hotel in the world, the most ambitious theme on the Strip, a castle for families in the middle of the desert. That was Excalibur. That was the promise. That was the promise. A castle for families, a fantasy for the middle class, a property that proved Vegas could work for everyone, not just whales and high rollers. And for years, Excalibur delivered. Filled rooms, packed casino, families making memories in a medieval kingdom rising out of the Mojave, kids watching jousting tournaments they'd remember forever, parents gambling after bedtime and feeling like they'd gotten a deal. The Vegas experience for people who couldn't afford the Bellagio. Then something changed. Not suddenly, not dramatically. You couldn't point to a single moment when Excalibur started to die. It happened gradually, year by year, investment by investment that didn't happen, renovation by renovation that got skipped, update by update that was deemed not worth the money. The carpet that should have been replaced in 2005 still there in 2010, still there in 2015, still there now faded, compressed, exhausted. The rooms that should have been modernized a decade ago looking exactly the same as they did when Clinton was president. The casino floor aging while Bellagio got refreshed, while Aria got updated, while every luxury property got attention and Excalibur got nothing. The castle started to age, started to fade, started to feel less like a fantasy and more like a relic, less like an escape and more like a time capsule, the depressing kind. The kind that makes you sad instead of nostalgic. And MGM, the company that owns Excalibur, that owns half the Strip, that has billions to invest in properties, watched it happen, made it happen, chose to let the castle rot. The Excalibur mistake wasn't an accident. It wasn't neglect by oversight. It wasn't a property that fell through the cracks. It was a strategy, a deliberate decision to extract value instead of creating it, to milk the castle instead of maintaining it, to let the families who loved it find somewhere else to go. And the strategy is killing the property in slow motion while the castle towers still rise against the skyline, while tourists still photograph it from the highway, while families who remember what it used to be drive past and wonder what happened. What happened is MGM decided Excalibur wasn't worth saving, and that decision, that calculation, that's the Excalibur mistake. Excalibur didn't decay by accident. Buildings don't rot on their own. Properties don't fade into irrelevance without someone making decisions that cause it. This was deliberate, strategic, a calculated choice by MGM to extract value instead of creating it, to milk the property instead of maintaining it, to let the castle crumble while counting whatever revenue it still generates. Let me show you how you kill a property in slow motion, how you murder a landmark while everyone watches. Look at what MGM invests in. Look where the billions go. Bellagio gets renovations, room refreshes, new restaurants, updated amenities. The fountains get maintained. The conservatory gets new installations. The property sparkles because MGM makes sure it sparkles. Aria gets attention, modern updates, the kind of continuous investment that keeps a property feeling current, feeling alive, feeling like somewhere you want to be. Park MGM got a complete rebrand. Hundreds of millions to transform it from the old Monte Carlo into something new. Fresh identity, fresh rooms, fresh everything. And Excalibur? Excalibur gets nothing, or close to nothing. The minimum required to keep the doors open. The rooms haven't had a meaningful update in how long? Walk into one. The furniture, the bathroom fixtures, the bedding. The general aesthetic of a room that was designed decades ago and never reconsidered. You're not staying in a hotel room, you're staying in a time capsule. The casino floor runs on equipment from the Bush administration. Not the second Bush, the first one. Slot machines that have been cycling through MGM properties for 20 years, always ending up at Excalibur when they're too dated for anywhere else. The property has elephant graveyard for retired gaming equipment. The restaurants, the ones that are still open, serve food that matches the decor, stuck in time, frozen in place. Nobody investing in making them better because nobody at MGM thinks it's worth the money. This isn't neglect by oversight. This is neglect by design. MGM looked at Excalibur, looked at the numbers, looked at what it would cost to renovate versus what they'd get back, and made a decision. This property isn't worth investing in. The returns don't justify the capital. Let it generate whatever revenue it can in its current state. Let it decay. The result is visible everywhere. The worn edges, the dated everything, the sense that you've walked into somewhere that gave up. That surrendered. That stopped trying because the company that owns it stopped caring. But no investment creates a doom loop, and the doom loop is already spinning. When you stop investing, the property gets worse. When the property gets worse, the guests change. And when the guests change, the property changes in ways that can't be undone. Who stays at Excalibur now? Look around. Really look. Not the families who made it iconic, not the middle-class tourists looking for an affordable fantasy. Those people have options now. Better options, cleaner options. Options that don't feel like stepping into a neglected past. The families who would have stayed at Excalibur in 1995, they're at Disneyland now. They're on cruises. They're anywhere except a decaying castle that makes them feel like they made a mistake the moment they walk in. Excalibur became the discount option, the property people book when they're sorting by lowest price first on Expedia. The place you end up when price is the only thing that matters and you haven't read the reviews. The bachelor party that can't afford Cosmo and doesn't care about the room because they're not planning to be in it. The tourist who doesn't know any better, first time in Vegas, just saw the castle online, didn't realize what they were booking. The gamblers chasing the lowest table minimums, the cheapest drinks, the bottom of the barrel. The guests who are there reluctantly, temporarily, counting the hours until checkout, already planning to stay somewhere else next time. The clientele shift is visible. Walk through the casino, look at who's playing, look at who's staying, look at the vibe. This isn't the family crowd of 1,995. This is the budget crowd of today. And budget crowds don't spend like family crowds, don't generate the revenue that justifies investment, don't treat the property with the same care. The doom loop accelerates. Worse property attracts worse clientele. Worse clientele generates less revenue. Less revenue justifies less investment. Less investment makes the property worse. Round and round, spinning faster every year, and MGM watching it spin. Here's what MGM calculated, and this is the dark part, they might be right. Excalibur still makes money, not as much as Bellagio, not as much as Aria, not as much as the luxury properties that get the investment and the attention, but the building is paid off, the debt is gone, the mortgage doesn't exist anymore. The fixed costs are what they are. Property taxes, utilities, basic maintenance, staff to run the operation. Those costs stay roughly the same whether the property is gleaming or decaying. And even a decaying property with budget guests generates some revenue, some gambling, some room nights, some food and beverage. Not a lot, but some. And when your costs are fixed and your investment is zero, some revenue minus fixed costs equals profit. If MGM invests $500 million to renovate Excalibur new rooms, new casino, new restaurants, the full transformation it actually needs, they might improve revenue by what, 20%? 30%? Maybe. On a property that's fundamentally limited by its location, at the south end of the strip, away from the action, away from the foot traffic, away from everything that makes center strip properties valuable. With a brand that's been damaged by decades of neglect, that's become synonymous with cheap and dated and last resort. The math says, maybe the investment doesn't pay off. Maybe you pour in $500 million and you're still at a disadvantage to properties with better locations and cleaner brands. Or, and this is the strategy MGM chose, you invest nothing. Let it decay, extract whatever revenue it generates in its current state, run the doom loop and count the profits along the way. And when it finally becomes untenable, when the building requires investment just to stay open, when the decay becomes structural, when the property can't function anymore, you close it, demolish it, sell the land, build something else, or just pocket what you made and walk away. The math might work, the strategy might be rational, the spreadsheets might justify every decision, but the result is a property dying in plain sight on the Las Vegas Strip, a landmark rotting while millions of tourists drive past, a castle that families loved that proved the middle market mattered, deliberately left to decay because the corporation calculated it was more profitable to let it die than to keep it alive. Strategic abandonment, deliberate decay, a calculation that letting a property rot is more profitable than saving it. That's the Excalibur strategy. That's the decision MGM made. That's what's happening right now, every day, while the castle towers still rise against the skyline. And here's what makes it worse. MGM isn't hiding it. There's no secret, no cover story, no pretense that renovation is coming. Everyone can see what's happening. The guests know they see the decay the moment they walk in. The employees know they work in a building their employer has abandoned. The whole strip knows. The whole industry knows. Excalibur is being left to die. In public. In plain sight. Because the corporation that owns it decided it's not worth saving. The castle that families loved, the fantasy that worked, the property that proved Vegas could serve the middle market, abandoned. Not because it failed. It didn't fail. It worked for decades. It filled rooms. It made money. It created memories for millions of families. Abandoned because MGM chose not to try. Because the spreadsheet said extraction was more profitable than investment. Because the families who loved Excalibur weren't valuable enough to fight for. The doom loop is spinning. The decay is accelerating. The castle is dying. And the question now isn't whether Excalibur can be saved. It's probably too late for that. The question is what Vegas becomes when properties like Excalibur are deliberately left to rot, when the middle market is abandoned, when the families who built this city are told through rotting carpet and dated slot machines and the smell of a building that gave up that they're not welcome here anymore. Excalibur is rotting, MGM is watching, the doom loop is spinning faster every year. But this isn't just about one castle with faded carpet and dated slot machines. This isn't just about one property that got left behind. Excalibur is a symbol, a case study, a warning about what Vegas does to properties that don't fit the luxury narrative, about what happens to the middle market when the corporations decide it's not worth serving anymore. Let me show you what the Excalibur mistake actually means and what's coming next. Excalibur isn't alone. It's just the most visible victim. The castle, you can see from the highway. The decay, you can't miss. But look around. The affordable properties, the family properties, the places where middle-class tourists could come and have a Vegas experience without spending their kids' college fund. Those properties are being systematically abandoned. Luxor, same owner, same neglect, same slow decay. That pyramid that used to shoot a beam of light into space, now it's a faded monument to a different era. The atrium stripped out. The theme gutted. The property drifting without identity while MGM pours billions into Bellagio renovations. Circus, the original family property, the one that defined affordable Vegas for decades, rotting under different ownership but with the same result, the same strategy, the same message. Families aren't worth the investment. Tropicana, gone now, demolished. But before it closed, it spent years in the same decay spiral, the same neglect, the same slow death while everyone watched. The strategy is clear. Vegas doesn't want middle market tourists anymore. Vegas wants whales, wants luxury, wants the guests who spend $400 a night on rooms and drop thousands at the tables without blinking. The families who made Vegas in the 1990s, the middle-class tourists who filled these properties and funded the transformation, let them go to Orlando, let them take cruises, let them find somewhere else. The middle market made Vegas. Think about that. Actually, think about it. The families who came to Excalibur, the tourists who stayed at Circus, the middle-class gamblers who filled the rooms that became the foundation of everything. They funded the profits that built Bellagio. They created the revenue that justified the luxury transformation. And now Vegas is abandoning them, letting the properties that serve them rot, telling middle-class families through every faded carpet and dated slot machine and closed buffet to go somewhere else. Excalibur is the symbol of that abandonment, the castle where families used to make memories left to decay because those families aren't valuable enough anymore. What happens to Excalibur? Where does the doom loop end? What does the future hold for a castle that's being deliberately killed? There are three possibilities, and I'll be honest, none of them are good. Future 1, zombie existence, the status quo extended indefinitely. Excalibur continues to operate in its current state, decaying a little more each year, attracting a slightly worse clientele each season, generating slightly less revenue each quarter, not closed, not renovated, just existing. The castle as corporate zombie, neither alive nor dead, shuffling along the strip, the towers still standing, the rooms still renting, the property still technically operational, while the decay spreads through every corner. This could go on for years, decades even. MGM extracting whatever's left until there's nothing left to extract. Future 2, sale and attempted revival. MGM finally decides Excalibur isn't worth holding, unloads the property to someone who thinks they can turn it around. Private equity, maybe. A new operator with fresh ideas and deep pockets. They pour money in, try to rebrand, try to make Excalibur relevant again. Maybe they lean into the medieval theme, actually commit to it, the way the original owners did. Maybe they abandon the theme entirely, strip the castle facade, turn it into something else. Maybe it works. Probably it doesn't. The location is challenging South Strip, away from the center of gravity. The brand is damaged. Decades of neglect don't wash off with a renovation. The castle might be too far gone. The guests who loved it have moved on. The new guests don't know what it was. Future 3. Closure and demolition. The end. The real end. Excalibur closes. The castle comes down. 35 years of history demolished in a few months of controlled implosion and debris removal. The land gets sold or redeveloped condos maybe. Or a new resort that pretends the castle never existed. Another Vegas landmark erased. Another piece of history sacrificed because the corporation that owned it chose extraction over preservation. The towers that defined the southern skyline, gone. The castle that millions of families photographed rubble. The medieval fantasy that proved Vegas could work for everyone, just a memory. A Wikipedia entry. A remember when conversation for people who visited in the 90s. None of those futures are good. Zombie existence, failed revival, demolition. That's it. Those are the options. That's what deliberate neglect creates, a situation where every path forward is worse than what could have been. If MGM had invested, if the renovations had happened, if the property had been maintained instead of abandoned, Excalibur could have a future. Instead, it has these 3 options. None of them redemption. All of them some form of death, slow or fast, quiet or dramatic. But death either way. Whatever happens to Excalibur, the message is already sent. Has been sent for years, gets louder every year the property decays. The message is, Vegas doesn't want you. If you're middle class, if you're a family, if you're looking for an affordable fantasy, for a Vegas experience that doesn't require a home equity loan, Vegas doesn't want you anymore. The properties that served you are being abandoned. The buffets that fed you are closing. The $49 rooms that welcomed you are gone. The castle where you made memories with your kids, look at it now. Really look at it. That faded carpet, those dated machines, that tired smell. That's what Vegas thinks of you. That's how much your business is worth to the corporations that run the strip. Not enough to replace the carpet, not enough to update the rooms, not enough to maintain the fantasy you came for. Excalibur's decay isn't an accident. It's a statement, a declaration that the middle market can rot along with the castle that served it. Vegas is telling you to go somewhere else, and the families are listening and leaving and not coming back. The middle market is leaving. The families are gone. The tourists who made Vegas are choosing Orlando, choosing cruises, choosing anywhere that doesn't treat them like an afterthought. And Vegas will miss them, already misses them. The empty Tuesday nights, the unfilled rooms midweek, the revenue gaps that luxury tourists can't fill because there aren't enough of them. The Excalibur mistake isn't just what's happening to one property, it's what's happening to an entire market segment, an entire customer base, an entire foundation that Vegas is deliberately destroying. The Excalibur mistake is letting it happen, is choosing decay over investment, is calculating that a rotting castle is more profitable than a renovated one, and being willing to live with the consequences. MGM owns the castle. MGM is letting it die. MGM decided that families and middle-class tourists aren't worth the investment it would take to keep Excalibur alive. Made that decision years ago. Makes it again every quarter when the renovation budget goes to Bellagio instead. The castle still stands. The towers still rise against the desert sky. The drawbridge still exists. Tourists still photograph it from the highway, not knowing what it looks like inside, not knowing what it used to be. But inside, the decay is everywhere. The faded carpet telling the story. The dated machines, the tired food court, the general sense of abandonment. A property that stopped trying because the company that owns it stopped caring. The Excalibur mistake was thinking you could abandon the middle market and get away with it. Was thinking you could let a landmark rot and no one would notice. Was thinking the castle didn't matter anymore. Was thinking the families who loved it didn't matter anymore. Vegas let Excalibur rot. Let it become a symbol of everything wrong with the strip's priorities. Let it stand as a monument to corporate greed and short-term thinking and the abandonment of the customers who built this city. And the rot is spreading to Luxor. to the whole middle market, to the idea that Vegas could ever be for everyone again. The castle is dying, the families are gone, and Vegas is discovering too late what it costs to let your landmarks rot. Hit subscribe to track the decay. I'm watching the properties being abandoned, the middle market massacre, the strategic neglect that's killing landmarks while the corporations count their quarterly profits. Drop a comment, have you stayed at Excalibur recently? Did you feel the decay? Did you feel the abandonment? Do you remember what it used to be? What would you do with the property if you owned it? Because Excalibur deserves better than what it's getting. The families who made it iconic deserved better. The middle market that built Vegas deserved better than to watch their properties rot while luxury towers get billion-dollar renovations. The castle is rotting, the corporation is watching, and Vegas is discovering what happens when you let your landmarks die. When you tell an entire market segment they're not worth the investment. When you choose extraction over preservation. When you let the castle rot. I'll see you in the next one.